Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Angela and we are studying for the Board Certified Behavior Analyst exam. All right, we are on section B, which is the concepts and principles. This video is specifically going to cover B3, define and provide examples of respondent and operant conditioning. So first, we're going to talk about respondent and respondent conditioning, right? So respondent behavior is involuntary behavior. This is elicited without any prior learning. Respondent behavior is elicited by an antecedent. This is an unconditioned stimuli, something that happens before that's going to elicit a certain type of response. And the unconditioned stimuli is what produces the behavior. So we have an unconditioned response, which is like a reflex. For an example, if the sun all of a sudden pops out and shines inside of my eyes, I might squint a little bit. That's an unconditioned reflex that was elicited by an unconditioned stimuli, like the sun. Or if the doctor takes a little hammer and pop it on my knee is naturally going to jerk up. That's an unconditioned response solicited by an unconditioned stimuli. So we have this term called phylogenic or phylogeny. This is inherited behavior. This is come from our genetics. It's a respondent behavior due to a phylogenic history, right? We have what is called habituation. This is when the unconditioned stimuli, when it's repeated over and over in a short amount of time, then my reflexes will actually diminish. So if the sun comes out, over time, my eyes will just adjust to the sunlight and I won't squint as much as I was before. So this is called habituation. All right, so we have an unconditioned stimuli, and that's going to produce an unconditioned response. We also have what is called respondent conditioning. This is where we have the Ivan Pavlov experiment with the dog. I don't know if you remember that, but that is when an unconditioned stimuli, such as food, was eliciting an unconditioned response, such as salivation. But when a tone, a bell, was paired with the food, the tone was a neutral stimuli, and it was paired with the unconditioned stimuli, which is the food, and it actually produced an unconditioned response, which is salivation. Okay, so the food itself was an unconditioned stimuli, and it led to an unconditioned response. But once the sound of a bell was paired with the food repeatedly over time, it actually conditioned the sound of the bell to elicit the same response the food represented, which was salivation. So once the tone itself was presented and it caused that salivation, the salivation was now a conditioned response. All right, so that is the conditioning, respondent conditioning. All right, and so next we're going to talk a little bit more about respondent extinction, because sometimes you can actually put something that you conditioned on extinction, so it no longer produced the response it was conditioned for. So over time, if you unpair that bell and you just don't present the bell with the food anymore, over time, the bell will no longer be conditioned as that stimuli, that conditioned stimuli that elicit the salivation, which was the conditioned response. All right, and so the tone will go back to being just a neutral stimuli over time, because it's no longer paired with the food. All right, and that leads to operant conditioning, because eventually that consequence will shape our future behavior. So coming in contact with food shapes the future behavior of ringing a bell, right? So we have what is called operant conditioning. And first we'll talk about operant behavior. And it's based on like the ABC model, because there's something that happens before. This is the unconditioned stimuli. And then you have the behavior, and then you have the consequence. The consequence makes the biggest difference in regards to whether or not it's a respondent behavior or operant behavior. Operant behavior is based on consequences. It's a learned behavior. So it's a behavior that's determined and maintained by the history of consequences. This is voluntary and learned behavior. So the behavior is actually defined by the function, the reason for the behavior, right? And so we have a term called ontogenic or autogeny. This is what leads to the learned behavior, and it results with our interaction with our environments, right? The consequence has either a punishment property, a reinforcement property, or an extinction property. This is what is called in ABA, we have the 7 dimensions, right? And so part of our 7 dimensions is that it's systematically, conceptually systematic. So by it being conceptually systematic, it must adhere to one of the principles, which is reinforcement, punishment, or extinction. So all of our procedures use one of those. So operant conditioning, let me give you an example. If I want something to eat, right, I have an antecedent, which serves as the motivating operation of being hungry. So my stomach growls, that's the antecedent. The behavior is I walk to the refrigerator. The consequence is I retrieve something from the refrigerator and eat it, right? So the likelihood of me getting up and walking to the refrigerator increases, right? Because it came in contact with a consequence of food, right? Now we have a term that's called adaptation. So adaptation is when you present a particular stimuli over and over, then you get adapted to that stimuli, all right? And it actually lessens the response that you evoke, right? So if I come and I visit you, right? Me coming to visit you the first time will probably evoke a huge response like, oh my goodness, she's here. Angela, wow, you're in my home, okay? But if I continue to come over and over, you'll adapt to my presence, right? That is adaptation. It's adapting to the stimuli, right? Now we have operant conditioning. So operant conditioning also is a part of the ABC model, the 3-term contingency. There's something that happens before, there's the behavior, and then there's the consequence, right? And so this is the process that determines the future of that behavior occurring or non-occurring based on if it comes in contact with a punishment or reinforcement, or that behavior is put on extinction, which means you no longer provide reinforcement the same way, right? Now, automatically in life, you're going to come in contact with a consequence. That's just the way life is. And operant conditioning occurs pretty much automatically, all right? Now, behavior is modified based on the consequences, even if you're not aware that you're being shaped by consequences, all right? So that is operant conditioning. Now we have, of course, the 3 principles of behaviors. We talked about it: punishment, extinction, and reinforcement. And this makes a difference in whether or not the behavior is going to increase, decrease, or eliminate. Right? Reinforcement increases a behavior, punishment decreases a behavior, and extinction removes the behavior altogether. All right. And so we have respondent operant interactions because respondent and operant condition could happen at the same time, such as using a microwave, right? You have the motivation of warming up some food. The presence of the food causes you to salivate. That's a respondent behavior, right? Because you have the unconditioned stimuli of the food elicits the unconditioned response of salivation. But you can also pair it with the sound of that microwave bell going off, right? And now it becomes a respondent, an operant behavior, because you hear the bell of the microwave, ding, and now you salivate because your food is ready, right? So the food itself wasn't present, but the sound of the bell was paired with the food being present. So now all you hear is the sound of the microwave going off, and now you salivate. So it could happen simultaneously. Consequences. This is simply what comes after the behavior. What comes after the behavior? What did you come in contact with? Did you come in contact with a reinforcer, something that caused your behavior to increase in the future? Did you come in contact with a punishment that causes your behavior to decrease in the future? Or was it put on extinction? You was looking for a reinforcement, but it was not there. So you just stopped engaging in that behavior. Okay. All right. So in our next video, we'll dive more into the difference between punishment and reinforcement. All right. Well, have an amazing day and keep studying, working hard, and studying hard. Have an amazing day.